Pete Alonso hit a walk-off home run to give Mets fans a little bit of solace, but there's still a lot to be concerned about.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. I've been covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. It's the only podcast that covers the Mets 7 days a week throughout the regular season. If you want to find some of my written work, you do so over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the editor-in-chief. So I did not expect to go live today. I told you all, I guess on the Saturday morning show, that I was only going to go live after the game on Sunday if the Mets were going to win that series because of how disheartening the game was on Friday with Jonah Tong having the meltdown. And then on Saturday, we watched a game that was similarly as disheartening or as frustrating as the Mets had a 2-0 lead, goes into the late innings, they blow it, they lose. And then again on Sunday, we're watching another great start by a young Mets starting pitcher, Noah McLean. He gives them 6 scoreless. You have a 2-0 lead. Time to get those final 9 outs with that Super Bowl pen that you bought at the deadline. And okay, now the lead goes away again. So I was not expecting to come on and do a live show. I really was just going to react and maybe put a little YouTube short up and not do too much with this game and then regroup, because for those of you who don't know, today is my birthday. So I was like, I'm not going to take my time. Well, Pete Alonso has me feeling some things, because at least the Mets not only win this game, but win this game in a way that could give you a little bit of momentum as I'm watching that final inning. And for one, Ryan Stanek does a great job. Got to give him credit for getting them through that top of the 10th without a run coming across, because if a run comes across, the Mets might have just completely crumbled. But he gets through it. That gives you a little bit of momentum, a little bit of juice, and you have your guys up. You got Juan Soto and Pete Alonso coming up. And the Rangers said, we're not going to face Juan Soto. We're going to face that big slugging polar bear that's been struggling, though, and they're going to try to take their chances with Pete. But Pete Alonso comes through. And as I was watching it unfold before he hits the homer, I'm thinking, if the Mets win this game and it's just a sac fly and a wild pitch or something where the Rangers sort of give it away, what can you take from it? And it's still hard to say, oh, this is the turning point, the whole season saved. But it could be. Like, it could be. It's my birthday. Let me be optimistic. It could be. At least they won with a little bit of pride at the end by Pete Alonso hitting a 3-run homer. They didn't just win because an unearned run came across, because it was extra innings and the ghost runner was able to score, because they were able to hold the Rangers off the board and they were able to get a guy to move 180 feet. They went on a home run, a 3-run home run by Pete Alonso, who last year, if you remember, he had a pretty big home run that sparked the Mets when it looked like their season was dead in the wild card round, and then carried that momentum all the way through to Game 6 of the NLCS. This Mets team is just playing scared, playing not to lose, and that's no way to win baseball games. I mean, they have to shake it up, and maybe a walk-off home run so everyone could go home tonight and not just be having the weight of the world on their shoulders. Maybe that helps. And you know what? You got an off day. I think that's a good off day to have now. If you got swept by the Rangers at home and you had the first, 9-game losing streak in however many, it was 2004 when they had an 11-game losing streak, and they haven't lost more than 8 since then. And so it's going to be the first time in 20 years since you had lost that many games in a row, and you get to wash your hands with all of that. All right, you got back in the win column. And the good thing is this wild card race is so pathetic right now that you're now all of a sudden a little winning streak away from like putting this thing on ice even. Like it can change so quick because of the fact that no other team has grabbed it this year. that you have just a bunch of teams who are pretty much hovering around 500 fighting for a playoff spot, that this might be one of those years where an 84-win team makes the playoffs. But you can be that team, and you can still have some good moments, and you can turn the narrative of this season around. Because, man, has the narrative gotten exhausting to the point where I'm back in my head doing the same thing we were doing last year when the Mets were struggling, where it's they got to do something. They got to change up this core. How do they change up this core? And then the only place that you can look is to a guy that you probably shouldn't be looking at, and that's the guy that just hit the walk-off home run. I'm sure a lot more people have been thinking about a future without Pete Alonso in a Mets uniform over the past 3 weeks than they did the first 3 months of the season, certainly. Then, and when he was chasing the record, when he took the record, the home run record, it's all Pete should stay here forever. When this team is struggling and every other player pretty much is either a young guy who's under team control or on a big deal, Nimmo, Soto, Lindor, and you're trying to think about how do you shake up this core, the only way to do it is to say goodbye to the guy that's going to be a free agent. But once again, Pete Alonso is the guy that comes through, just like he was last year. And it reminds you, yeah, maybe that's not a guy that you should ever want to say goodbye to, at least not right now. Because at the end of the day, what was that? His 34th home run this year, 35th home run? How many does Pete have now? 34th home run. And he's, what's the RBI total at now? 117 RBIs. He's not the problem. This team, for whatever reason, has just been in an incredible funk. And it's during moments like this where you start to say, well, something has to give. Something has to change. Heads have to roll. And I get it. It was not a fun weekend of baseball to watch until the last 5 minutes of that game. I would say, because you even had the catch, the double play catch by Lindor in the top of the ninth, where, again, you were at risk of losing the game. You got a runner on third base, 1 out. Lindor catches a low line drive and nabs the runner at third. And you think, okay, that's a big play. And then you don't score in the bottom half of the inning. So it really was. I mean, watching Noah McLean and Brandon Sproat pitch this weekend was great. It was awesome to see those guys dominating and showing how polished they are as guys that have spent the whole year in AAA and are clearly ready for the moment and are honestly at this very moment the two guys you'd probably hand the ball to right now more than anybody else, just because they got the arsenals, they got the good stuff, and they're pitching deep into games that they really did give you 2 really good starts. But every single inning you're watching this Mets lineup just come up empty. A team that is supposed to be based on having this dominant lineup. So it was not a fun weekend of Mets baseball, but you get a happy ending. And maybe that's all this team needed. Maybe you just needed that feel good. And then you got an off day to let that sink in. And then, all right, now get back to work. You have one last week at Citi Field this year, unless you can do something about it and change up the energy in that clubhouse, figure out a way to start playing winning baseball again. And if you do that and you have a great week, the way this wild card race is going, you're going to be in a nice, comfortable spot. And then you got to do it on the road. And you're going to have to keep doing it on the road because this team's not getting any home field anything in October. You're not going to see Citi Field again until you're in the NLDS. If you're lucky enough to make the playoffs, if you're lucky enough to find a way to win a series on the road. But for now, it's one thing at a time for the Mets. And you got an off day to try to let this win sink in, and then you got to go to work against the Padres. Good team coming to town. So we'll see. We'll see if the Mets can turn this into something more than just a nice walk-off home run. I'll remember, oh, yeah, back on my 30th birthday, I remember Pete Alonso hit that walk-off homer. It was awesome. And then the Mets crumbled. I don't want to remember it like that. I like to remember, oh, yeah, Pete Alonso hit that home run, and the Mets actually played up to their potential for the final 2 weeks of the season, and they made the playoffs, and maybe they did a little something once they got there. I want to talk about Noah McLean, though, in the next segment because we're definitely brushing over the player of the game, really. I mean, Pete Alonso is co-player of the game with that home run, but You're talking about the first 9 innings. There wasn't a lot to like other than Noah McLean's performance. So we're going to go through that here in just a minute. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season's here. FanDuel is making sure you're ready to kick it off with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. If your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet, whether it's player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy. It's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place that first $5 bet. And again, if it wins, you get $300 in bonus bets. Thank you all for tuning in to the live stream today. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Help us get to our next goal of 15,000 subscribers. I'd love to get there by the end of the season. We only got a couple weeks left, so really do appreciate all of you who subscribe. Now, Noah McLean was awesome in this game. I mean, he was dominant from the beginning. The incredible arsenal that he has, the way that he can navigate at bats so differently because of the different pitch mix, the different pitches that he can go to, whether it's all of a sudden he's struggling to land the breaking balls and he starts to whip out that cutter to just steal some strikes and give them a look that they haven't seen, or he can go to the changeup after he's been setting them up with the sinker. He just is such a polished pitcher. It really is crazy that he's a rookie. I mean, he is throwing the baseball as well as any Met since when. I mean, obviously you have, pockets of guys like a Kodai Senga who is dominant, or, there's been times where the last year, the way Sean Manaea was going, but to see a guy who is 24 years old, a rookie, that you have this long real estate of his prime is here. He's arrived, he's an ace, and you got him for a long time. It's so encouraging. And if nothing else, at the end of this season, the good news is you're going to go into 2026 saying, we know who the ace is in the New York Mets, and it's Noah McLean. Honestly, I don't think that there's going to be anybody else that should be penciled into that opening day start because of how good the guys get bet. He's got a 1.19 ERA, 1.19. And every time he needed to get a big out, he got the job done. First inning, strikes out the first couple guys, issues a 2-out walk, gets out of the inning. Second inning, all he gives up was the single, and it was the one where he didn't cover first quick enough because Pete Alonso made that great diving stop, and he didn't quite get there in time. Third inning, 1-2-3. Fourth inning, he gives up a leadoff single, gets a double play ball. Gives up another single, gets a strikeout, out of the inning. Fifth inning, starts the inning off with a couple of strikeouts, gives up a double, walks a batter, a little bit dicey, couple runners on, gets the big strikeout of a really good hitter in Wyatt Langford. And then in the sixth inning, gets the first out, hits Adolis Garcia, gives up a base hit, tough spot, runners at first and third, gets a double play ball and gets out of it. I mean, Noah McLean just continues to show you that this guy's ready. He's ready for whatever the Mets have to throw at him down the stretch here. Part of me just wishes that they were getting more of Noah McLean. I mean, I get that they want to make sure that this guy is good to go, and I guess that's probably the thought process. Have him pitch one game a week, and then when you get to October, if you are a playoff team, then maybe you can ride on a little bit more, but they just got to get in at this point. I'd consider going to him, every fifth day just to try to squeeze an extra start out of him. But regardless, he gave you everything over 6 innings and set you up for then the bullpen to blow it because the Mets only scored 2 runs. They scratched the one in the 5th, and then you had the Nimmo solo homer in the 6th. And then in the one in the 5th was the double by Alvarez, and then he just came across on a couple ground outs. But you had a 2-0 lead, and it's the same pitchers. You go to the same. I mean, that's what you got to do. You got to go Rayleigh, Rogers, Diaz. Rayleigh comes in, gives up a leadoff hit, gets a couple of outs, hits a batter, and then you go to Reed Garrett, which I didn't really agree with. I guess the thought was Wyatt Langford. I'd assume if I looked at the splits, he probably rakes against lefties, but you had Jock Peterson on deck, and all Reed Garrett did was come on and walk the bases loaded, then give up the hit to Jock Peterson that blew the game. I mean, Reed Garrett has come off the IL and has not been very good. So that's now another hole you got in your bullpen. Luckily, Tyler Rogers had a good inning. Great play by Jeff McNeil to finish off that 8th inning. The glove toss, good pick by Pete Alonso to get the final out of that inning. And then you had Edwin Diaz come on and Houdiniac with that low line drive double play I was talking about before that Lindor made. But Diaz didn't even look that great either. I mean, comes in, gives up a base hit to Kyle Higashioka. So it's hard to look at all of the baseball that we watched over the weekend and do what I was trying to do in the first segment, which is pump that optimism into this team and say, oh yeah, they figured it out. But I think so much of what's wrong with this team right now is mental. It's those jerseys start to feel so heavy, and it's because the players are feeling what the fans feel. You know, it's so funny because Steve Cohen, when the Mets had that, I think it was after when they beat the Brewers in the wild card series, or maybe it was after the Phillies in the NLDS. It actually might have been after the NLDS, where Steve Cohen said he wanted to rid that negative mindset, that negative perception among Mets fans about the team. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. And then you have a season like this one where you build off the momentum of that great run you had last year. You start off this season with the best record in baseball, and then you put together 3 months, or now almost going on 4 months of baseball that the Mets have, where it's damn near the worst team in baseball. And so it's very hard as a fan to let go of that mindset, because we've watched it forever. And when you are watching this team on an 8-game spiral, it's hard not to get back into that thought of, man, this team's just like hexed. Like how could they possibly be this bad? And I think the players start to feel that too. And so, maybe the losing streaks just drag it out a little bit more. But you know what? In baseball, it's so momentum based that you hit a big walk-off home run and you can feel good for 48 hours. Let's see what they look like on Tuesday. On tomorrow's show, I'm going to be talking about the decision to have Sean Manaea pitch out of the bullpen. Clay Holmes is going to make that start, it seems like, and then you're going to go with Sean Manaea. After that, it seems like they're going to keep Jonah Tong in this rotation. So Jonah Tong will likely start the final game of that series against the Padres. In between, you're going to have David Peterson pitch the middle game, and we'll see how the Mets do. Maybe the piggyback that I've been talking about on this show for weeks now, maybe that works, and you get a near complete game between Holmes and Manaea, and you get a win in game 1. David Peterson finally delivers a gem, and then all of a sudden, Jonah Tong completely flips the script. And then you have momentum, and then you carry it over against the Nationals, and all of a sudden, it could look like a completely different team, and the context of the season could change on a dime. And it could have all started with this home run. Or they're going to come out flat, and they're going to lose. But that's baseball for you. So, again, on tomorrow's show, we'll be talking about where to go from here, that road ahead. And, of course, I'll update you on all the different scores and everything that happened in this wild card race. Real quick, let's try it real fast. Giants are losing, but it's only the 4th inning, 2-1. I think the Reds were winning last we checked here. Reds 3-1. They're in the middle of that game. And the D-backs, I think, might be done at this point, and they were beating the Twins. So it would be pretty funny. Yeah, the D-backs are on the bottom of the 9th right now, 6-4. So it'd be funny if all these teams win and the Mets are still clinging to a half-game lead, but it feels a lot better to be clinging to that after a walk-off win than after what we saw yesterday, which was the Mets lost their lead, and then overnight, as all the teams played in the West Coast and everybody lost, it came back around for the Mets. Or Did the Reds win yesterday? Regardless, half game lead for now, or full game lead for the moment as I'm talking. If the Giants win, it might go right back to half game lead, but the Mets will be leading going into the second to last week of the season in this wild card race, and we'll just see how long they can hold on to it. Appreciate all of you tuned into the live stream. Appreciate all of you who will tune into the replay, whether on YouTube or on your podcast feeds. As always, thank you all for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider and be part of our texting service, you can go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets.